I came home early during a blackout and heard my wife celebrating my future accident with our neighbor. But instead of confronting them, I decided to play a different game. At 42, I thought I knew everything about trust. What I discovered during a power outage changed not just my marriage, but my entire understanding of human nature. During a power outage, my wife Catherine didn't realize I'd come home early. In the darkness, I heard her tell our neighbor James that once the insurance pays out for his accident next month, you and I can finally be together. They clinked wine glasses, planning my demise. I quietly left and returned later with a flashlight, acting surprised to find them together. 3 weeks later, my phone started receiving her increasingly desperate voice messages. Thing is, Catherine and I have been together for 11 years, married for 7. We met at a mutual friend's Chicago party back when people still did that kind of thing, before everything changed. Not going to pretend our marriage has been perfect. We've weathered storms like any couple who's chosen to build a life together. The spark wasn't quite what it used to be, but I figured that was just the natural evolution of long-term commitment, you know. The comfortable settling that comes when passion transforms into something deeper, or so I believed. Our suburban Indianapolis neighborhood had been experiencing these rolling blackouts lately because of some grid maintenance issues. Usually not a big deal. A couple hours, flip the breakers, life continues. But that particular evening would prove that sometimes the most life-altering moments happen in complete darkness, when people think no one's watching, when they believe their secrets are safe. Last month, Catherine kept bringing up life insurance, saying we should increase my policy just in case. Made perfect sense at the time. Our basement had flooded after that brutal spring storm. The furnace was making those ominous grinding sounds that homeowners learned to fear, and our savings account was looking pretty anemic after all the repairs. So I signed the papers, bumping my coverage to $800,000. Didn't think twice about it. After 11 years together, you trust the person sharing your bed, sharing your dreams, sharing your future. James Morrison had moved in next door about 14 months ago after his messy divorce. Seemed like a decent enough guy initially. Started coming over to borrow tools, asked for help with his riding mower. That kind of neighborly interaction. Looking back with the clarity that only devastating betrayal can provide, those little repairs probably didn't require my expertise, but I've always been the type to lend a hand. Catherine started inviting him for dinner sometimes, said she felt bad for him being all alone in that big house. She'd get dressed up for these dinners, putting in way more effort than when it was just the two of us. I noticed but chose to ignore the warning signs. Sometimes love makes you willfully blind to the things you don't want to see. Last Tuesday, we had another blackout scheduled for 6:30. I was heading home early because my longtime friend Marcus had canceled our weekly basketball game. No big deal, didn't text Catherine about the change in plans. My phone was at about 3% anyway, and honestly, after 11 years of marriage, you don't always announce every minor schedule adjustment. I pulled up around 6:15, just as the power cut out. Perfect timing, right? Our garage door opener had been malfunctioning for weeks, another item on my ever-growing fix-it list, so I parked on the street and used the side entrance. The whole house was already shrouded in darkness, but I could hear voices drifting from the kitchen. Catherine's laugh, but not her normal, genuine laugh. This was that higher-pitched, performative one she uses when she's trying to charm someone. Then I heard James' voice too. Look, I'm not naturally the jealous type. After 11 years together, you develop a certain confidence in your relationship, a trust that runs bone deep. I figured they were just keeping each other company during the blackout. But something felt profoundly wrong, like when you're driving and suddenly realize you've been going the wrong direction for miles. So instead of announcing my presence, I found myself standing motionless in the hallway, hidden by the darkness that had become my unwitting ally. That's when I heard words that would shatter my entire understanding of the woman I'd pledged my life to. Catherine was talking about the plan, how it needed to look completely natural. James asked if she was certain about the timing, his voice carrying an edge of nervous anticipation. Then, clear as a church bell on a quiet morning, I heard Catherine say that once the insurance pays out for his accident next month, you and I can finally be together. The wine glasses clinked right after that. They were toasting to my death, celebrating their future built on my grave. My brain just short-circuited, like when you're in shock after a car accident and time seems to stretch and compress simultaneously. I felt sick, hot, cold, everything at once. But somehow, some deeper instinct for survival kept me from storming in there screaming. Instead, I quietly backed away and slipped outside, sitting in my car for maybe 30 minutes, just breathing, trying to process that my wife of 7 years was actually plotting my murder for insurance money with our neighbor. It felt like discovering you're living inside some twisted crime drama, except this was my actual life. Thing is, I've never been the smartest guy in any room, but I'm not stupid either. Making a scene right then would have accomplished nothing except warning them that I knew their secret. So I drove around aimlessly until full darkness settled over the neighborhood, maybe 8 o'clock. Stopped at the corner market and bought some flashlights, bottled water, and snacks. Had to act like I was just being prepared for the blackout, maintaining the facade of normalcy while my world crumbled beneath me. When I finally returned home, I made plenty of noise coming through the front door, called out Catherine's name like everything was perfectly normal. She answered from the kitchen, her voice strained and artificial. I walked in with the flashlights, and there they were. 2 wine glasses on our kitchen table. James looking guilty as hell, Catherine with this ridiculously fake surprised expression, asking why I was home early. I played completely dumb, said Marcus had canceled our game, handed them each a flashlight, acted like finding them together was the most natural thing in the world. James made some transparent excuse about just stopping by to check if we had power too. I even offered him a beer, watching him squirm as he declined and said he should probably get going. The next 3 hours were the most surreal of my entire life, sitting there with Catherine by candlelight, making small talk while knowing she was literally planning my death. She kept checking her phone, texting someone. 3 guesses who. I started noticing details I'd been blind to before. She'd put on her expensive perfume, the one she only wears for special occasions. She'd also changed into that blue silk blouse I always compliment her on. For James, not for me. Over the following days, I started paying attention with the focused intensity of someone whose life depends on it. Catherine had been working late frequently, her phone suddenly protected by a passcode she'd never needed before. She was asking strange questions about my schedule, whether I was planning any solo trips, acting extraordinarily nice sometimes, then distant and distracted others. Classic suspicious behavior, as my nephew would say. Then I found the browser history she'd forgotten to clear. Searches for undetectable poisons, how to make death look like an accident, average life insurance payout timelines. Yeah, that obvious. Like watching a child try to hide that they've stolen cookies, leaving crumbs all over their face. I also discovered they'd been communicating through some encrypted messaging app. Couldn't see the actual messages, but the notifications revealed they were in constant contact. Meanwhile, Catherine was barely speaking to me except to enthusiastically suggest my upcoming fishing trip with my brothers, the one she'd always complained about before. Even offered to help me pack, which should have been the biggest red flag of all. She'd historically hated these trips, always finding reasons why I shouldn't go. Last weekend, I accidentally knocked over her purse. Out fell a small, unlabeled bottle containing something that definitely wasn't vitamins or perfume. She snatched it up with lightning speed, got incredibly defensive when I asked what it was. Said it was just supplements, but she looked like she'd seen a ghost. The final confirmation came yesterday when I overheard her on the phone. She thought I was in the shower, but I'd just turned on the water and was actually retrieving something from the bedroom. She was telling someone, undoubtedly James, that it had to look completely natural. They needed to stick to their timeline, and the fishing trip would be perfect because accidents happen out there all the time. So here I am. My wife of 7 years is actively plotting to murder me for insurance money so she can start a new life with our neighbor, and they're not even being particularly clever about it. I've been sleeping with one eye open, carefully examining everything I eat or drink. Haven't told anyone yet because honestly, it sounds completely insane. Who would believe this scenario? Plus, part of me still can't fully accept that this is happening, that the woman I've shared a bed with for 11 years wants me dead. Here's my strategy. I'm documenting everything I can find. Screenshots of her search history, photos of that mysterious bottle, recordings of anything suspicious she says. I've already moved most of our savings to an account she can't access, told the bank I suspected fraudulent activity on our joint account. Not technically a lie. I'm seeing a lawyer tomorrow, quietly. Need to understand my options. I've started recording everything in our house, Ordered some small surveillance cameras that arrived today. She has no idea they're there. I'm pretending everything is normal while watching her dig herself deeper into this hole. Thing is, I could just confront her, could just leave, but after 11 years together, after how coldly she's planned this betrayal, that's not nearly enough. I want her to face real consequences. I want James to face consequences too. Look, I know revenge isn't healthy or whatever the self-help books say, but I'm not just going to lie down while they orchestrate my accident. I'm going to make them regret ever thinking I was someone they could eliminate so easily. I'll update when there's more to share. For now, I'm playing along with their deadly game while setting up my own chessboard. Has anyone else been through something similar? Am I crazy for not just confronting her directly or going straight to the police? Part of me still can't believe this is actually my life now. First update. Holy hell, my last post exploded like a defective firework. Thanks for all the awards, messages, and advice. For those demanding an update, here it is. Fair warning, this is going to be extensive. These past 3 weeks have been the strangest of my existence. Walking around my own home, knowing my wife wants me dead hits differently than you might imagine. It's like living with a loaded weapon that you know is going to fire, just not when. But I've been maintaining my composure, acting completely normal. Even had intimate relations with Catherine twice, which was psychologically complicated. She seemed distracted throughout, probably fantasizing about James or maybe calculating how to poison me afterward. I met with that lawyer I mentioned. Older gentleman with a cluttered office and 4 divorces under his belt, perfect for my situation. He provided solid advice that essentially boiled down to document everything, protect yourself financially, and gather ironclad evidence. No surprise there, but having a professional confirm I wasn't losing my mind helped more than I expected. First order of business was our finances. We had about $23,000 in our joint savings, not substantial, but everything we'd managed to accumulate after buying the house and dealing with last year's flood damage. I couldn't just empty the account without raising suspicions, so I devised a plan. I confessed to Catherine that I had a gambling addiction. Yeah, I know how that sounds, but listen to the logic. I told her I'd been secretly gambling online for months and lost several $1,000s. Said I needed professional help, was going to join a support group, The Complete Performance. Even created fake betting history using photo editing software, thank you YouTube tutorials. She bought it entirely, even delivered that whole supportive wife routine, rubbing my back and promising we'd overcome this together. Academy Award-worthy performance, considering she's planning my funeral. The beauty of this gambling addiction story is that it explains any suspicious financial moves. I transferred most of our savings to a new account, leaving just enough to avoid suspicion. Told her it was to protect me from myself. Also explained why we needed separate accounts temporarily. She actually loved that idea, probably thinking how convenient it would be after I'm gone. Next, I needed to create friction between Catherine and James. A marriage is like a complex machine that looks intimidating from the outside but consists of individual components that can each be sabotaged separately. I noticed James gets intensely jealous when Catherine interacts with other men. At our neighbor's barbecue last weekend, I observed how his expression darkened when she was chatting with the host. So I started casually mentioning other men when talking to Catherine. Oh, that guy from her office texted asking about some work project, just innocent conversation, but always when I knew James might overhear, or she might mention it later. Then I accidentally sent James a text meant for Catherine about how amazing she looked in that dress she wore to meet her friend. A meeting that never actually happened. Deleted it immediately with a quick sorry, wrong person, but the damage was deliberate. For Catherine, I started planting seeds of doubt about James' financial stability. Mentioned casually that I'd heard his business was struggling, asked if she knew he was behind on his mortgage payments. He's not. I fabricated that detail. Little breadcrumbs of suspicion. Thing is, observing them squirm has been weirdly satisfying. I'm not typically someone who enjoys others' misery, but knowing they were planning to murder me fundamentally changed the rules of engagement. The surveillance cameras I installed captured some fascinating conversations. They're still planning the accident during my fishing trip, but now there's tension between them. In one recording, Catherine questioned James about some woman who keeps commenting on his social media posts. He became incredibly defensive. In another, they argued about money. Seems James is expecting a larger share of the insurance payout than Catherine wants to provide. Trouble in murder paradise. I've been collecting all these recordings, screenshots, everything, building my case. Even recorded myself opening that unmarked bottle from her purse, used protective gloves. Send a small sample to one of those mail and testing services. Results should arrive next week. Meanwhile, I've been creating what my lawyer calls a pattern of close calls. Basically making it appear like I've been having strange accidents. Told Catherine I nearly fell down the stairs while carrying laundry. Another day, came home with a bandage on my arm, claimed I'd swerved to avoid a deer while driving and scraped against a guardrail. Nothing major, just enough to make her and James nervous that I might accidentally die before their grand plan. The expression on her face each time was priceless. This weird mixture of concern and disappointment, like she was worried I'd beat her to the punch by dying naturally. Last week, I initiated the financial chaos phase. Discovered some unauthorized charges on our credit card, called the bank while Catherine was present. Made a dramatic show of being concerned about identity theft, had all our cards canceled and new ones issued. The temporary freeze on our accounts sent Catherine into barely concealed panic mode. She kept checking her phone, texting frantically to James obviously. I've never seen someone so stressed about not being able to use a credit card for 72 hours. Oh, and I casually mentioned to our neighbor across the street, who happens to be close friends with James' ex-wife, that I was considering real estate investments and heard James might have valuable insights. Dropped that we'd been seeing quite a bit of him lately, especially when I'm not home. The expression on her face told me everything I needed to know. That gossip was going to spread like wildfire. Thing is, my strategy isn't just psychological warfare. It's about creating a comprehensive safety net for myself while making them increasingly desperate and careless. I took an unexpected day off Wednesday, didn't inform Catherine. Parked down the street and observed our house. Sure enough, James appeared an hour after I would normally have left for work, stayed for 4 hours. I captured everything on video from my phone. When I reviewed my home surveillance later, they were discussing the timeline again. James seemed increasingly anxious, saying they needed to be more cautious. Catherine assured him everything would proceed smoothly once they handled things next month. Here's where it gets interesting. I decided to test their commitment level. Told Catherine I was canceling the fishing trip because my brother Michael had injured his ankle. He hadn't, and we weren't postponing anything. The color literally drained from her face. She actually tried convincing me to go alone, said I deserved some personal time and shouldn't miss out just because of Michael's situation. The same woman who'd complained about my fishing trips for 7 years suddenly couldn't wait to get me on that lake by myself. The psychological manipulation is definitely working. Catherine's been making increasingly sloppy mistakes. Left her phone unlocked yesterday. I got a quick glimpse. Texted James saying they needed a revised plan and she was getting concerned about the money situation. Also discovered receipts for some questionable online purchases in her email. One was for some untraceable communication device, another for sophisticated logging software. Guess she's trying to spy on me too. Amateur hour. Last night was my biggest tactical move yet. I vanished for 60 hours. Didn't tell Catherine where I was going. Didn't answer my phone. Just disappeared. Stayed at a motel 3 towns over. Used cash. Kept my phone completely off. For all they knew, I might be dead in a ravine somewhere. The surveillance cameras captured their reaction. Catherine called James in complete panic about 8 hours after I should have returned home. He rushed over. They searched the house thoroughly, checked my social media, called local hospitals. Not out of genuine concern, they were terrified. James kept repeating this wasn't part of their plan. They weren't prepared. Catherine was worried about the insurance. Apparently you need an actual body to claim that sweet payout. I returned Sunday evening acting like nothing unusual had happened. Said I'd needed some space to clear my head. Went camping alone. The look on Catherine's face was absolutely priceless. Relief mixed with frustration, mixed with complete confusion. She tried acting angry that I'd worried her, but I could see her mind frantically recalculating. That night, I overheard her on the phone in the bathroom. Our walls are thin, and she was whispering loudly. Caught fragments about getting suspicious and needing to accelerate their timeline, and couldn't wait much longer. They're getting desperate, making mistakes. Exactly what I wanted. So here's the current situation. I've secured most of our money. I've collected substantial evidence of their plotting. I've created significant tension between them. They're increasingly paranoid and sloppy. I've convinced Catherine I'm completely oblivious to what's happening. Thing is, I'm nowhere near finished. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. I've canceled that life insurance policy they were so excited about. Paperwork processed yesterday. Catherine doesn't know yet. When she discovers that little detail, well, that should be fascinating. I'm also meeting James for drinks tomorrow. Yeah, you read that correctly. Called him up, said we should hang out, get to know each other better since he's around so frequently. He couldn't decline without appearing suspicious. Planning to get him intoxicated, see what information I can extract, maybe plant additional seeds about Catherine's other male friends. The final touch, I'm going on that fishing trip after all, but not the way they're anticipating. I'll update again when there's more to share. For those concerned about my safety, don't be. I sleep with my door secured, prepare my own food, and have a trusted friend checking on me daily. These two aren't criminal masterminds. They're a bored housewife and a desperate man who think they're more intelligent than they actually are. Final update. Hey everyone, many of you have been messaging me asking what happened, if I'm still breathing, etc. Spoiler alert, I am, and things have evolved dramatically. Buckle up. This is going to be comprehensive. That drink with James I mentioned in my previous post exceeded my wildest expectations. Met him at this dive bar downtown, place with sticky floors and faded photographs on the walls. Told Catherine I was meeting some friends from my gambling support group. She actually encouraged me to go, probably hoping I'd crash my car on the way home. Thing is, James cannot handle alcohol worth a damn. 3 beers in, and he's slurring his words, getting all emotional about his divorce, his financial problems, his complicated situation. I played completely ignorant, just nodding along sympathetically, buying more rounds. By the 5th beer, I casually mentioned that Catherine seemed stressed lately, asked if he had any insights. That's when things became fascinating. He started rambling about how plans change and people aren't always who they claim to be. Then he dropped this bombshell. Catherine had apparently been communicating with her ex-boyfriend recently, said she'd been keeping her options open. James was clearly furious about it. Feeling manipulated, I acted appropriately surprised, asked more probing questions, recorded the entire conversation on my phone. The information I gathered was invaluable. I mentioned that life insurance policy, told him I'd been considering canceling it since the premiums were becoming too expensive with my gambling addiction. His expression shifted from drunk and relaxed to oh shit in about half a second. Started rambling about how insurance is critically important, and I should definitely maintain it, then immediately changed the subject. When I returned home that evening, Catherine was waiting up, asked how my support group friends were doing. I told her everything was great, then mentioned I'd encountered James at the bar, said he seemed upset about some woman he's been seeing who was playing games with him. The expression on her face was absolutely priceless, like when you know your car's transmission is about to fail completely. Next morning, the real entertainment began. I received an email notification that the life insurance policy cancellation was complete. Left the email open on my laptop accidentally when I went to shower. When I emerged, Catherine was making breakfast, hands trembling slightly. Asked if everything was all right. She mumbled something about a headache. That same day, I discovered fraudulent activity on our remaining joint account. Called the bank with Catherine present, made a dramatic show about how someone must have compromised our information. Account frozen pending investigation. Catherine nearly had a complete panic attack, but tried concealing it. Asked when it would be restored. I shrugged, said could be days, could be weeks. The bank needed to verify all recent transactions, including those cash withdrawals she'd been making, the ones she thought I hadn't noticed. Things escalated when I received a call from the testing service about that powder from Catherine's purse. Not poison, fortunately, just crushed sleeping medication, prescription strength. Guessed their plan was to sedate me before staging the accident. The call came while Catherine was in the room. I pretended it was about a job application, but made sure to repeat test results and sample analysis loud enough for her to hear. Watched her face drain of color completely. Meanwhile, my anonymous tip to James' workplace about possible ethics violations started producing results. Received this panicked text from him asking if Catherine had mentioned anything about his work situation. I played ignorant again. Later overheard Catherine on the phone with him, something about an internal review and how he needed to remain calm. My hidden cameras captured her pacing frantically, telling him they needed to postpone everything indefinitely. Then came the nuclear option. I left my laptop open again, but this time with a draft email to a divorce attorney visible. Detailed all my suspicions about Catherine's affair with James, mentioned the life insurance policy, the mysterious powder, everything. Made it appear like I was gathering evidence but hadn't sent it yet. Then I accidentally left location sharing activated on my phone and went to meet with my actual lawyer, ensuring the location clearly showed I was at a law office. When I returned home, Catherine was in full damage control mode. Prepared my favorite dinner, suggested we watch that science fiction movie I'd been wanting to see, even initiated intimacy for the first time in months. All while her phone kept buzzing with text she was clearly trying to ignore. James going into complete panic mode, undoubtedly. The following day, I dropped the strategic bomb, sat Catherine down and calmly told her I knew about her and James. Not the murder plot, just the affair. Said I'd seen text messages, noticed the pattern of him visiting when I was away. Told her I wanted a divorce. Her reaction wasn't what I anticipated. She admitted to the affair but swore it was finished. Said James had been pressuring her for money, threatening to tell me everything if she didn't pay up. Claimed she'd been trying to end things for weeks. Tears, begging, the complete performance. Not a single word about the murder plot, just painting James as the villain while she played the poor manipulated victim. I nodded along sympathetically, said I needed time to process everything. Asked her to stay with her sister for several days while I figured things out. She reluctantly agreed. The moment she left, I sent James a carefully edited recording of Catherine from my hidden cameras. Just the segments where she talked about him being unstable, threatening her. Made it appear like she'd thrown him completely under the bus. His response was a barrage of texts calling her every conceivable name, said she was the one who conceived the entire plan initially. Claimed she'd promised him they'd split everything equally after it was completed. Didn't specifically mention murder, but close enough. I preserved every message. While they were busy destroying each other, I executed the financial endgame. Filed for divorce citing infidelity with comprehensive evidence. My lawyer helped me secure temporary orders freezing most of our assets. Changed the locks on the house, legally since my name's the only one on the deed. Cut off Catherine's access to what little remained in our joint accounts. James' situation deteriorated even faster. That ethics investigation uncovered some actual questionable dealings. He got suspended pending review. His ex-wife heard rumors about him and Catherine, filed for a modification of their divorce settlement claiming he'd concealed assets during their original proceedings. The house of cards was collapsing spectacularly. Thing is, watching them self-destruct should have felt more satisfying than it did. Don't misunderstand me. There's definitely satisfaction in witnessing justice unfold, but there's also this profound emptiness. 11 years of marriage reduced to this toxic conclusion. Some nights I still wake up wondering how I never recognized the warning signs earlier. About 10 days after Catherine left, the voice messages started. First few were angry. How could I do this to her? I had no proof. She'd get what she deserved in the divorce proceedings. Then they shifted, became pleading, desperate. She couldn't access any money. Her sister was evicting her. James was threatening her. Could she please just come home to talk? I saved every message without responding, each one more desperate than the previous. The turning point came 4 days ago. I was clearing out some of Catherine's belongings when I discovered a notebook hidden behind our dresser. Inside were detailed notes about my schedule, my habits, lists of accidents that could happen naturally, research on life insurance payouts and waiting periods. And most damaging, a step-by-step plan for the fishing trip, including James' role in ensuring I didn't return. That night, I texted Catherine, asked her to meet me at a coffee shop the following day. Public place, lots of witnesses. When she arrived, she looked terrible. Clearly hadn't slept, obviously stressed, started immediately with the victim routine. I let her talk for about 5 minutes straight. When she finally paused for breath, I silently slid the notebook across the table. The expression on her face was like watching a computer crash in real time. Complete system failure. She tried stammering some explanation about it being creative writing for some class she was taking. I just stared at her, finally told her I knew everything, had known from the beginning. The power outage, the wine glasses, the entire murder plot. Then I presented her options. Option 1. I take everything I have, the recordings, the notebook, the powder test results, James' texts essentially admitting the plot, straight to the police. Option 2. She signs the divorce papers I brought, terms non-negotiable. She gets nothing except her personal belongings and her car. No alimony, no house equity, no shared assets, and she leaves town permanently. She sat there for what felt like eternity, just staring at the notebook. Finally asked in this small, broken voice if I'd really known all along. When I nodded, she started laughing. Not happy laughter, that shattered kind that's one step from complete breakdown. Said she thought I was too stupid to notice anything, that's why they'd chosen me. Easy target, decent insurance payout. Thing is, hearing her say that out loud should have devastated me, but it didn't. I felt nothing, like watching a stranger describe someone else entirely. She wasn't the woman I'd married, maybe never had been. She signed the papers right there, didn't even read them. Asked if I'd really go to the police if she didn't comply. The look I gave her was answer enough. As she was leaving, she turned back, asked how long I'd known. I told her since the power outage. She just shook her head, mumbled something about how different things could have been, and walked out of my life forever. James didn't get off any easier. I sent him screenshots of the notebook pages along with a simple message, leave town or I take this to the police. He didn't even respond, just listed his house for sale the next day. So here we are. Divorce papers filed, house is quiet, their lives are in ruins while I'm, well, not great but intact. Moving forward. For those wondering about the powder, I received the complete test results. Enough sedatives to incapacitate a large person would have made it effortless to stage that fishing accident they had planned. Where things stand now, Catherine's staying with a friend in another state. No job, no money, reputation destroyed after I let our mutual friends know about the affair. The murder plot stays between us for now. James' house sold below market value, his career finished, his ex-wife reopened their divorce case. Karma can be remarkably efficient. I'm seeing a therapist now. Turns out discovering your wife of 7 years wanted you dead leaves some psychological scars. Who knew? Also downloaded a dating app last week. Already had coffee with someone. Nothing serious, just nice to remember that normal people exist. Thing is, I'm not the same person I was before all this. More cautious, less trusting, but also stronger in ways I never expected. Like an engine that's been completely rebuilt after catastrophic failure. Different components, same function, maybe running even better than before. Some of you have asked if I regret not going to the police. Honestly, sometimes. But prosecution would have been messy, public, with no guarantee they'd serve significant time. This way, they lost everything that mattered to them. Money, reputation, security, future. While I get to rebuild quietly. Life's strange. One power outage changed everything. If I'd come home at my normal time that day, I might be dead by now, floating in a lake while Catherine collected my life insurance. Instead, I'm sitting in my house, drinking my beer, sharing this final update with internet strangers who've been surprisingly supportive through this entire nightmare. Sometimes the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme. It's just ensuring people face the natural consequences of their actions while you walk away intact. So that's it. Story concluded. No more updates after this one. Time to close this chapter and begin writing something new. At 42, I've learned that sometimes the most profound transformations happen in the darkness, when you think no one's watching, when you believe your secrets are safe. But darkness has a way of revealing truth, and truth has a way of setting you free, even when freedom comes at the cost of everything you thought you knew about love, trust, and the person sleeping beside you.